problem. Uh, Don Mazzella here again for Small Business Digest. We have with us man today, Shawn Nelson, who's going to talk about furniture, which has always been a very important topic for me. It is for a lot of other people. But we want to talk about where it's going in terms economically, in terms of President Trump is sure shaking up everything, and I think he's also shaking up the furniture industry to some extent. But we'll start first with what Shawn's been doing. Shawn Nelson, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Shawn, as we ask all our guests, tell us a little bit about your personal background and about your company, and finally where people could learn more.
Sure. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. And when I graduated high school, 10 days out of high school, I had a crazy, dumb idea to make a giant, not beanbag, giant beanbag, the size of my parents' living room floor that I could maybe take camping, take to the beach, whatever. And I got off the couch, drove down to the fabric store, bought some fabric, brought it home and built it. And everywhere I took it, everybody wanted one. And 3 years later, my neighbor finally convinced me to make them one. And I started this business called Lovesac as a side hustle in college, making giant bean bags, but not with beans filled with chopped up foam, because it was squishier and softer and just I couldn't find enough beans to fill something that size anyway. This thing would fill the back of a truck. And so fast forward 3 more years, by 2001, we finally opened our own store in Salt Lake City because none of the furniture stores would have us. And it worked. We opened dozens of stores after that, had plenty of ups and downs as a business, eventually invented a really cool solution for a couch, a sectional sofa called Sactionals. And it took us a number of years to figure out how to make that a business. But by 2015, we were doing tens of millions in Sactionals, this modular sofa you could have the rest of your life. And by 2018, took the company public at 100 million in sales. And here we are today, around 700 million in annual sales, mostly the sectional sofas, and more products on the way, still selling sacks, still growing this business with this crazy brand called Lovesac.
Well, I'll ask 2 questions. One, where do you manufacture? Here in America or overseas?
So we manufacture all the sacks in America, in Texas and North Carolina, and we manufacture all the sofas and covers for those, because they're washable and changeable covers, overseas, mostly now in Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, a little bit in China, having been really pushed out of China by the Trump tariffs that you mentioned.
Well, let me ask you a question. Unlike a lot of people, you said we. Who is we in your mind?
I learned a long time ago as a leader that we is just always more effective. So we are me and my partners at Lovesac. I have more than 2,000 partners in this business. We get to employ around 2,000 people across our 300 locations around the country. We're mostly in shopping malls and front lines, but I have an amazing executive team, people that have been executives at Walmart and L'Oreal and the biggest companies in the world, really, some of them, and really proud of the team we built and the company we're building.
Well, the other question I'll ask: what do you consider the biggest obstacle to your growth, and how did you overcome
it? I would probably have to say raising money. I think funding a product company in particular, product companies just eat cash. You could run a profitable product company and still run out of cash and into big problems, and I've learned this the hard way. And so raising money from friends and family in the beginning, weird loans and debt, venture capital, private equity, all leading to going public on the stock exchange. All of these transitions have been very challenging. And thankfully, we've been able to navigate them successfully, but it's never been easy. Meanwhile, you're running a business, right?
When you said, did you go the private equity route?
Yeah, so I've been through all of that. I've been through venture capital, private equity, all of it.
Well, what have you learned from that you pass on to our audience, many of whom run their own companies?
Yeah, look, I think, like I said, fundraising in general is the hardest thing. At least it was for me. I didn't come from money. I didn't even know what finance was. I probably, when I graduated college, and remember I was running Lovesac through college and taking business courses, I don't think I really even understood that finance was any different than accounting, just to be transparent. Meanwhile, a good example is when we opened our first Lovesac store in 2001, we did fantastic right out of the gate. We couldn't believe it. Like we didn't, when we opened it, we weren't sure if anyone would even come in. Like no one had seen a giant beanbag store, let alone flop down on their butt in the mall in front of people, let alone spend $1,000 on a giant not beanbag, but they did. And had I known that there are lines of people, there are people that would line up to lend me money, let's call it invest money, to see their money grow. Had I just had one or two really successful locations that could be proven and replicated, I probably wouldn't have taken the cash out of the drawer, run to California, and opened the second and third and fourth and fifth locations, because some of those worked, some of those didn't work. And it led us to all kinds of financial trouble along the way. But I didn't understand finance. I didn't understand. And so I made a lot of mistakes. I made every mistake. But at the same time, we did eventually successfully raise venture capital money. We did eventually parlay that to private equity support. And then we did eventually get to an IPO, and I've actually really enjoyed being a public company. But that distraction of finding enough capital to buy inventory, to keep operations going through the lean times, to get to another Christmas where we make a lot of our money in a business like this, in the early days especially, was always stressful and challenging and hard, having not come from money.
Do you sell your products through mainly through stores, or or do you also do online or other uh, channels?
Yeah, so we've always been online. We invented the sacks to be shrunken down to 1/8 their original volume so that they could ship to you via FedEx or UPS. And that was always a huge logistical advantage of our whole concept. It allowed for us to be online very early in the early 2000s, even when we started our first store in 2001. And so today, believe it or not, almost 70% of our sales are still through showrooms, and only 30%, let's say, online. And the reason for that is when you're spending 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 or $10,000 on a sectional sofa that has all these cool attributes, most people want to see it. They want to sit on it. They want to, this isn't a flippant purchase. This is a considered purchase. And so those showrooms for us have been critical because our products are very unique and really do not require, but invite people to come try it out and really see if it's what you think it is based on this advertisement that you've seen on TV or online or whatever. So we have a unique business model that doesn't apply to every category, especially today where so many things can just be online.
Mm.
But Lovesac's a unique business. And, just to maybe answer the question you threw out before, what advice would I give on funding a business like that? I would have to turn you to my book. So I wrote a book called Let Me Save You 25 Years, where mistakes, miracles, and lessons from the Lovesack story, where I try to unpack a lot of these stories and offer useful advice and make it helpful to people who are just starting out. I wrote this book for startups and founders and business owners. It's called Let Me Save You 25 Years. And the specific advice on that topic is shake every tree. You have to, when in the early stages, if you're not independently profitable or wealthy, you have to shake every tree all the time. You have to be constantly finding ways to network to raise money. And it's painful and exhausting.
Do
Meanwhile, you got to keep running the business.
you have the book with you now?
Not in my hand, I should, but it's a fantastic book. I'm really proud of it. It's as much a picture book, coffee table book. It's unlike, listen, I read all the business books. I'm a huge advocate of reading, learning, podcasts, and I tried to, because I've read so many myself, I tried to write a different book. It's short, it's sweet, it's fast, but it's loaded with, I think, useful epithets. And then, by the way, I parlayed that book into my own podcast called Let Me Save You 25 Years, where I chat with some of the most successful people in the world. I've had Gary Vaynerchuk, Mark Cuban, John Mackey, Sarah Blakely. We could go down the list of people um, unpacking those Shawnisms with me one by one. So they're very unique conversations, and anyone starting a business or running a business should check it out.
Well, with all these people, if you were to boil it down, what are the two or three things that you think are key to being a successful entrepreneur? I hate the name entrepreneur, but well, a business owner.
Sure. I think that all of these people seem to have that common attribute of grit and determination. You know, I talk about it a fair amount on my podcast. Pros make things look easy. You watch the world's best musicians on a stage holding a guitar singing. They just look like they could do it blindfolded, and they can. But part of the reason they can is because they have done it 1,000 times. People will see me on CNBC talking about my stock, and I'm talking about, margin expansion last quarter and the pressure from the macro economy, and I'm rattling off all of these metrics on my business. And I used to watch these people talk about their stocks on TV thinking, man, like they know so many big words and terms. They understand their business inside and out, their profit and loss to their cap table to their, balance sheet. I don't think I could ever do that. But what you don't know when you're watching those people like me is that I've already delivered those same messages 50 or 100 times on private phone calls with investors around earnings and Wall Street analysts that are probing and asking and demanding answers. And I prepared for those things. And so when I finally end up on TV, I can, it's like Billy Joel playing Piano Man. I could do it with my eyes closed. And pros make it look easy. So as I talk to these talented people beyond even just entrepreneurs, I've had Gronkowski, on. I've had Shaun White, professional snowboarder. Successful people make it look easy. Instagram makes it look easy, but it's effing hard. And there are decades of work that have gone into most of these success stories that, like Lovesack, the book, that's why it's called Let Me Save You 25 Years. I'm taking 25 years of pain, suffering, and work and boiling it down into a book you could read in 90 minutes. Right. And I'm trying to just take the most useful stuff and put it before you. Uh, and there may be some fun parts in the book that make it sound hard, but when you read it in 90 minutes, it can't be that hard, right? But 26 years, my entire adult life, that's no joke. And so that's what they have in common. Grit and determination, number one.
Well, you're young, I know, so, but what's your exit strategy?
I have no exit strategy. In fact, I've made, and I didn't, it wasn't always the case. Like I have, look, most of my entrepreneur friends, they've built and sold 3, 4 businesses by now, and I'm still running the same one I started when I was technically 18 years old. And I'm pushing 50. I'm 48 years old. That may not sound very sexy, but Lovesac has evolved to a place that I'm really proud of. And I think we have a shot with this crazy brand of building it into a Nike, an Apple, a Tesla, a Disney. I'm not joking. We make products that are built to last a lifetime, but can evolve with you as life changes, as your family grows, as you move, relocate, styles change. Our products change with you. And we are driven by this purpose of inspiring people to buy better stuff so they can buy less stuff. And it's coming from a company that makes stuff. And when you're driven by a purpose that is more meaningful than just selling lots of stuff and getting super rich, even though that may happen too, it's exciting and it never grows old. And it's kind of just fun to see if we can't do it, see if I can't build a Nike. Now, I should be further along. We should have had even more success already. We should have done some things differently. I've had plenty of starts and stops, the worst kind. We had to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the middle. It was terrifying and exhausting and humiliating. And I talk about this in the book. But here we are today, a profitable, cash flow generative public company that nobody sees coming because we kind of like are dismissed as that beanbag brand. And I think we're building the Nike. So if it takes the rest of my life, if it takes another 25 years, I'll go 25 more.
Hmm.
And if someone can do it better than me, I'll move over. But I really think we have a shot at building something lasting. And that's what I want to do.
That's interesting because most people, well, most entrepreneurs get bored. They've done it. Now they want to do something else.
Yeah. Yep. I'm different. And I wasn't always. I won $1 million on TV with Richard Branson when I was 27 years old. I won his reality TV show called The Rebel Billionaire on Fox Network.
Hmm.
My runner-up in that show was Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. We joke around, she won in life. I won the show. But I thought, having been made Richard Branson's protege, that I would start 20 businesses and sell some and get super rich and invest in more. And maybe I should have. I don't know. But my story didn't happen that way. And you can read the book and find out why. And I'm very transparent about all this. But it's not just because I'm stuck here. It's because once we discovered, look, we had the chicken before the egg. We made these couches that could last and last. Again, not just because they're built well, they are, but because they were designed to evolve with you. You can change the covers, change the fabric, shapeshift them. Now we have technology you can build in. You can, we just launched the recliner. You can add it to the Sactionals you already have. What's my point? That led us to this design philosophy, design for life. And that really changed the game because I look around now and everything you see in your life could be redesigned according to this framework and made better. And so the reason I'm not bored is because I'm not slinging bean bags for profits. That we sell sacks still, we sell couches still, but we will remake all the important stuff in your life according to this design philosophy. We will drive a movement where people will be inspired to buy better stuff so they can buy less stuff. And that's going to take a long, long time. And it's going to disrupt many different categories of business. And so for me anyway, that's not boring.
Hmm. But you haven't given us a website where people could learn more.
Yeah, of course. Lovesac.com, learn more about the business. ShawnDNelson.com, check out my book, check out the podcast. Let me save you 25 years on every podcast platform. And look, I have no advertisers. I wrote the book to be useful. The podcast is just meant to be useful. And I'm grateful to have some of these experiences to share.
Hmm. Well, we have just a couple minutes left. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Sorry?
We just have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
A few minutes left. What would you like to leave our audience with?
Oh, um, look, I think on the podcast, we're now at around 50 Shawnisms that we've unpacked for hours at a time with some of the most successful people. And so I have lots to leave you with, and I'd encourage you to check that out. But, if I could, I guess, leave you with one, I'll leave you with two. The opening Shawnism. I do this 25 chapters in the book, 25 years of stories, 25 little Shawnisms of advice. Number one is just do something. The reason Lovesac exists, and I have a shot at building a Nike, a Disney, I believe that, is because when I had the idea to make a giant beanbag, probably the dumbest idea anyone's ever had, I got off the couch, I turned off the TV, I drove down to Joann's Fabrics, and I bought some fabric, and I brought it home, and I sewed it up, and I started putting stuff in it. Just do something. Stop talking about it, stop debating it, stop going around in circles asking for advice. Go do something, anything. And then everyone loved it. Who could have guessed? I wasn't even trying to build a business. It was 3 years before someone convinced me to make the next one. And I guess the last piece of advice I'll give you is from the last chapter of the book, Let Me Save You 25 Years. Maintain top ambition with infinite patience. It can be grueling year after year after year of just slinging beanbags and couches just to get big enough to even matter, so that you can attract the best talent in the world and build the best teams and then really start building a brand. If you really want to do something great, and it's tough because people of ambition, people that are doers, people that are starters, have a hard time with patience because it sounds like complacence, but it's not the same. And sometimes you have to grind it out for years just to get to the place where you matter enough and have enough wherewithal to really do what you really want to do. But if you don't have the patience to let that happen and you try to short circuit it or take the shortcut, you'll either find some distraction and be lost on some other path, or you won't succeed at the level of ambition you really want. So I believe that your level of patience needs to be commensurate with your level of ambition. And in my case, I want Lovesac to become the most loved brand in the world. And I know it sounds ridiculous, and I know you don't believe it, but in the immortal words of Bruno Mars, don't believe me? Just watch.
On that note, we're going to say thanks for a very great time together, Shawn. Thanks a lot.
Great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.